Hello again, everybody. I'm Larry Hamilton. Welcome to my YouTube painting channel. Thank you for watching. Glad to have you here today in this live broadcast. Today we're going to talk about vignettes. And if you don't know what that is, I have a few little definition for you, and I have some general rules. I'll take you through a little overview of what artists typically think of as vignettes. And so I'm going to get over to my computer right now, and I'll be right back with you in just a moment. Hold on. Okay, I'm back at my computer now, and I want to take you through a little tutorial on vignettes. I'm not an expert on vignettes by any means, but I want to give you a little definition and show you some rules that at least visual artists use for painting vignettes. And I've gotten this from several different artists. Claude Crony is probably one of the earliest and most famous vignette painters. Also, Edgar Whitney is another one who have guidelines and rules on how they paint vignettes. And most recently, an artist I took a workshop off of back in 1997, his name is Tony Hasselt, and he actually has a video on vignettes. So I was able to reacquaint myself with that video and with the rules that he uses. So let me take you through that very quickly here with a little presentation on what a vignette should look like. So let me show you the word vignette. Really comes from French, and it kind of was made known when some of the monks that were copying manuscripts had a lot of white space left at the edges of their paper, and they would draw these little vine-like images, illustrations on these works, and it kind of became popular in the 18th century, I guess. And the real definition that I've gotten out of the dictionary is that it comes from Middle French word called vignette. I guess it is how you say it. It's a diminutive form of the noun vigne, meaning vine. I'm sure I have some French students here that know how to pronounce this better than I. However, it was used like I said, that in design or illustration, it ran along the blank border of a page, and or one that marked the beginning or ending of a chapter. So they got their name because they often look like little vines. They were just filling in white space on these manuscripts and that sort of thing. And so it's now later in the 19th century, it's sort of changed, and you can have a vignette that's a literary sketch, a narrative. There's many ways that it can be used today, and but the visual artists have always sort of used this idea that a vignette should have these attributes. It should cover only 60 to 70% of the paper. It should leave 30 to 40% of the paper white. The paint should touch the edges on all four sides of the paper, and those places where it touches should be different sizes and different shapes and different distances from each corner. The white space on each corner should be part of the design. You should not just leave geometric rectangles or circles or triangles at the corner, but you should make an interesting shape out of the white space that's left, and you should sort of try to connect that with other lights or whites running through the painting. And lastly, the painting should contain a nice mix of hard and soft and rough edges. So with that said, I did a little rough sketch of these, and I want to show you here my little video. So when you think about painting a vignette, you may do some sort of a value sketch. I usually do some sort of a value map on my computer, and I usually show that to you. But let me show you 4 different ways people can do vignettes and what's good and what's not good about them. So let me zoom in here and get lined up so you can follow me here. So in the first case here on the upper left is going to be a case where the paint really covers too much of the paper. You've got stuff going on up here. You got sky, and you've got some sort of a heavy, nice dark shapes going on in here, and basically what you're doing is you're painting this thing all the way out to the edges of the paper. You're not really paying much attention to leaving nice white spaces in the corners, and maybe you've got a few white spaces here and there, but basically you've just covered this entire painting way too much, and maybe you got some nice darks, some nice lights in your painting, but it's still way too much. It's more than more than 70%. If you see some of the vignettes, if you Google images on Google.com, if you Google for vignettes, you'll see some nice little things that kind of look like this, and there'll be some nice shapes in there, and some nice edges, soft edges and hard edges and that sort of thing. And they come out like this, and could be an interesting shape, but it doesn't really, it may be called a vignette. You may see paintings that look like this on when you Google for vignettes, but it doesn't go off the paper on all four edges. And so it really, by these rules that I use and many artists use, that would not be called a vignette. It's basically too small for the paper. If you cut the paper down, cut it off, and you can make a vignette out of that and frame it up, but that's really not what a vignette is. Another type of vignette is you'll see some people maybe do something like this. Let me throw a little bit of dark in here and take this thing off the paper and take it off the paper up there and come over here and maybe put some more stuff in and take it off the paper right here, and then really come down here and maybe have a few more things going on down here, and you end up with, that's not a good vignette, I guess I would say. That's basically, it's done almost in the shape of a cross. You have this sort of a, it goes off the paper here, it goes off the paper right below it, it goes off the paper here, and it goes off the paper on the left side right beside it. So you want your vignette not to look like that. It has boring corners. Each corner is almost a rectangle or a square. Very little going on there. And so you want your white shapes at the corners to be much nicer and more interesting than squares and rectangles. So what should it look like? Well, I'll try to put one over here that should look a little better. We're going to do a barn here that's got some interesting shapes, and I'm going to take it off the paper on this side over here, about down there, and I'm going to take it off the paper somewhere up in here, maybe like this, maybe some trees or clouds, I don't know which yet, but we're going to have some nice dark shapes in the middle here that's going to connect. We're going to have some shapes coming down like this. Now, I could make this boring if I leave that sort of rectangular there, and I need to put some other little things sticking out here that would help improve that shape in the corner. Same thing over here. Now I want to take it off the paper on this side, but I don't want to take it off exactly across from this. So I either got to take it across off the paper up here or off the paper down there. So what am I going to do? Well, I'm going to take it off the paper up here. So I'll have something, maybe some interesting trees or something up here that take it off the paper and fill it out. Let me put a little more water in there, lighten it up so I have a mixture of values in here. I don't have all. And so it doesn't even have to hit, you don't want to make these, you don't want these shapes on the edges to be identical. You want some to be small, some to be wider, some to be like that. This is still a little bit of a boring shape here, so I'm probably going to want to put something into that shape to make it have some edges that are rough. I've got some soft edges in here. I got some hard edges. I need some rough edges. Excuse me. So let's take it on down here and say maybe I'm going to take it off just briefly down here on the bottom. Okay, so that is a pretty good idea of what a nice vignette would look like if you take it off the paper. Use sort of this angular thing so you're not going horizontally and vertically off the same part of the paper. You want to come down here and put this thing so we have some interesting shapes. So if I look at my white shapes now, they're part of the design. I have an interesting shape over here. I have an interesting shape here. I have a nice shape over here. It's a little bit connected to the white that's inside. And over here I have a nice interesting shape. And it goes off the paper in 4 different places. Up here, there, and here. And it also leaves some nice little dots and things in here that make it so that you just don't have a boring shape over there on the edges. Now, so your photograph that you may be copying probably won't give you that. So you're going to have to artistically create that type of image from painting a vignette. So I'm going to try to do that in our next class here and see how we get along. So that's my short, brief introduction to vignettes, and I just wanted to give you that so you could get an idea of what looks right, what looks wrong, and what looks better. So hopefully that's going to be helpful, and we can use that in our class. Okay, we're back now. I wanted to take you through the photographs that we're going to be painting today, and I have a couple of photographs that I want to show you. We're going to do two paintings, both watercolors on 11 by 14 300-pound watercolor paper. And the first painting is going to be this barn that I received from the administrator of one of the Facebook pages I'm a member of, called Watercolor Workshop. And it's a challenge for this month, and I have about 4 different photos I could pick from. And so I picked this one, and I just call it barn number 2 because it was that's how it was listed in the competition delivery. So I may not put all those flowers in the front, but I'll do some sort of an abstract foreground in that. I have a sketch for it here that's on my website, and you can go out and download that to use it for your painting. And I do not have a value map because I didn't do one. We're going to do a value sketch over at the easel when I get back there, and I'll show you how to use the techniques I just demonstrated in that little presentation, how to do a value map of something like this. The second photo is of a Virginia sawmill. This is a photo from a workshop that I attended in 1997. That's an artist there. That's not Tony Van Hasselt. That's another student. And Tony painted this particular barn, and we followed him. And I still had this photograph back in my archives here, so I was able to grab it, and we'll use that for our second painting today. And I have a sketch also of that made. That's it's a little bit different than the photograph, of course. I moved some things around. I added a couple people in there, and pulled that little truck that was on the right hand side. I pulled it in from the right and moved it in behind that tree. So I think with that said, I'm going to sign off here and go back over to my easel, and we will take it up from there and get this painting going. So hold on. Okay, here we are. I have my brushes here, my typical Sterling Edwards set of brushes, and I have my bristle brushes, my two bristle brushes that I use. I have a couple of flats, 1 inch and a ½ inch flat here. I have about three rounds and a rigger, number 12, 8, and 6. And I have a couple other squirrel mop brushes here that I started using from Trekell. And I kind of like these for doing something like this, like we're going to have with our vignettes. I'll go through the paints here very quickly again, and just to remind you, we have neutral tint, cyan blue, ultramarine blue, permanent violet bluish, crimson lake, primary red magenta, cadmium red, burnt sienna, raw sienna, yellow ochre, have cupric green, sap green, lemon yellow, primary yellow. I have on the inside row, I have burnt umber, and I have still to grain brown and Auvergne orange, and I have lamp black and Chinese white, titanium white, sorry, titanium white. So that's the set of brushes and paints. And let me get this over here on our main camera now, and let me show you now. What I've done is, here are the 4 that I just showed you on that other video, and I also have put another square out here for the 2 paintings we're going to do today. You can't probably see it, but there's a little small pencil sketch in here of the first painting and a small pencil sketch here. So while we have this up here, I'm going to use it and use my big old mop brush, and I'm going to do kind of what I did in that other video, pick up some of my lamp black, which is a really nice black that can get some good darks, and I'm going to see if I can put in a value sketch here. And I was reminded when I was looking at my video that Tony Van Hasselt made that I was reviewing. He does this before all of his paintings. He always does a large value sketch, and he uses some sort of a big old brush like this to do it. So this particular one's going to have some really dark places in here. Don't want it to run everywhere, but there's a couple of darker areas like here, although actually it runs all the way down like this. I'm not trying to make this perfect. I don't want to make it perfectly match the sketch there, the pencil sketch, but I want to kind of get an idea of where I'm going to take this thing off the paper. I want to take it off the paper over here on this side with some trees and a little another building over here on the left. So I'm leaving some little marks in there, some things that look like they could be connected whites, right? Talked about that. The tops of these roofs are very much lighter here, so I'm going to put in something here that's lighter along here, there, like that. There's another roof over here. So just something very simple. Take another little brief. Now these, I have some hard edges and I have some soft edges in there where I've actually let the water run, but I want some rough edges. So I'm going to take that off the paper down here on the bottom. This is a field of some kind of flowers or something. I want it to come off down here so that I'm going to put the sky up here. The blue sky is going to come in up here like this, and it's going to surround some clouds. And so it's going to go off the page up here. Now, I don't have anything off on this side yet, so let's just extend maybe this dark. I don't want to do that. I want to put this some part of this field that's down here. I'll put that off the side over there. Now, how do my shapes look? My white shapes. I have a fairly interesting shape up here. This side, I have a fairly interesting shape over here. I don't want it to look too rectangular, but I want it to have some rough edges and some soft edges. Up here, this is a pretty big shape up here. I think I'll probably put in a few more things like, not clouds, but some of the blue sky that I'm painting under and around. And I'm not going to take it off the paper. I'm just going to put the blue sky there and let it sort of exist. So make these shapes interesting so they're not boring. They're not geometric. They're not circles. They're not squares. They're not rectangles, triangles, that sort of thing. So I think that's a pretty good map that I can use for that painting. My other one down here is a barn. I'm going to get this this other photograph I have here, and I'm going to use that sort of as my guide, but it's got some really darks in here, a little darker there. In this area, all under here, there's a big dark area, maybe going around some people's heads. In there, there's a little bit of dark here. So I'm trying to indicate these darker shapes, and now I got to figure out where I'm going to take this off the painting, off the paper. So I think I'm going to come way down here and maybe put a big blob of something down here in this corner. Maybe there's a bunch of bushes and trees down there. Dark's not dark enough, but I'm going to work with it right now. Up here, I think I'm going to use the top of this barn. I'm going to leave it sort of outlined and put some of these more trees. There's a bunch of stuff going on. I have the ability to actually take some of these trees right off of the top edge here of the painting. Make some interesting shapes out of it. Okay, what else here? This has got to be really dark here. I'm trying to get 3 values. Remember how I do my value maps? Try to find 3 values. So my white could be 1 value, my mid-tone could be the 2nd value. So let's see over here. Maybe I want to take, I don't want to take it exactly across from that, so I'm going to take something off the page. More trees. There's a lot of trees sitting over here, so I can do a lot of that in this area. Bring it off the paper, leave some white paper there, bring it down. Maybe there's some more really dark stuff going on inside these shadows underneath these logs that are sitting out here, like that. And maybe I'll just bring this right off down here like that. So I've got now almost too much white. I need to have a little more paper covered than I have. So I'll come back and see if there's some areas that I could cover some more of that paper up. And so I can still get some nice interesting shapes here and here. Down here, there's a pretty good shape. There's one here. So you see what I've tried to do with this value sketch. Left the roof sort of white and put the darks inside. There's maybe a chance to put in some windows in there that you can see through. But that's pretty much the idea. You want to go through and see if you can make a good, interesting shape with 3 values. I wouldn't do that much detail if I were using my computer doing a value map. I would just sort of block it off and just have some big darks in here, and it would be a lot more rectangular looking. It wouldn't be this interesting as a vignette will be. So that's my thinking there, and I hope that you're able to appreciate that, and hope you can try to do that. It's a good exercise. If you buy one of these brushes, some of them are fairly inexpensive. These were about I think $6 or $8 each from Tassel.com. I have a link on my website if you want to go check them out. You can get a little discount if you use a code number that's on my website. So that's my sales pitch for today. And clean off my palette now. I want to take this off. So that's our little instruction on vignettes. So try that. Get yourself some paper and make yourself some rectangles and try to make interesting shapes that look like vignettes that go off the page in 4 places with different widths and different interesting white shapes. Okay. Put that down here and I'm ready to go. Now this is our sketch, and let me get my camera all zoomed in here and get myself set up so that you can see this better. Whoops, let's see here. Get over here like this. There we go. Back up just a little. I'm my own camera operator, folks. I don't have another person helping me here. I'm going to move it over so I can get myself, actually I want myself out of the picture as much as possible. And then I can overlay my palette on here. I'm going to put it, where do I want my palette? I want to put it down here. Okay, that's where I like to have my palette usually. All right, I think now we're ready to start our painting process. And I got to keep thinking vignette. I want to make sure that I don't forget that I'm not going to paint to the edge of this, that I've got to leave white paper. And so I think maybe I'll just start out with one of these mop brushes and start using that for the sky and try to paint it fairly loose. One of my ideas this year was to try to have every painting have some sort of a theme, so this is our vignette theme. Pick up some sky color that's, I think I'll get some of this cyan blue. And again, I want to keep my value plan in place so that I don't forget where I was taking stuff off of the paper. So up here, sort of had this idea that I was going to take this blue sky right off the top of this paper up here. Bring it down. We got some clouds down here. And this is a good place to make sure we have some soft edges, because let's see, I'm going to just leave this on the right side. I'm not going to take that off the paper there. I'm just going to leave that sort of go into nothing, or soft edge, very soft edges, by putting some more water on it. Soft edges up here. So if you were out painting in nature, you'd probably be doing this very fast and very loose. I'm going to lighten up some of these pencil lines. I'm noticing my cloud lines are sticking through. I want you to be able to see the sketch, but I don't want those pencil lines to show through as much as they are right now. So I'll just take a few of those off. There we go. Okay. So a little more sky color. Up here, I just want to let it softly fade into nothingness. I'm going to have it above this barn here. I'm going to have this sort of outline top of this barn, so that I have my sky color, and then I have my clouds and stuff going on there. I don't want it to get down and run into the barn roof too much. So I'm going to leave that barn roof sort of white. And I'm going to have some, maybe put some more trees over here. I don't know. These were not necessarily in the painting, but another roof over here I want to paint around. Again, leave room. Don't take it all the way off the paper. Just let it, keep those edges soft. There, I almost took that off the paper right there, which is not exactly what I wanted to do. All right. Soft edges, go back, put some water on it. Throw some splatter in there, maybe some spots where you can let it run a little bit. I am going to take it off the edge of the paper over here, so I'm not too worried about this. But let's put this in like that. And got the really darks going on in here inside the barn. So I'm going to save that. Okay, I think that's maybe enough for the sky. Got that color handy if I need to go back to it. But let's just leave it at that. This is a little bit too hard edge up here. I probably want to come in and touch in just some shadows in there in some areas and make it covered up so it's not quite so white. Okay, I could get my bristle brush out, my Sterling Edwards bristle brush, and thin those things down by using just clear water, and not thin them down, but kind of take some of the hard edge off. Sometimes this brush is so hard it actually picks up some of the paper. So they're not quite as hard as they were. Okay, I'll leave it at that for now. I might be able to make that better, but I'm going to not fuss around with it too much right now. Okay, now, so inside this barn we've got some really darks. We've got some reddish color, and I think I'm going to see if I can get this reddish color with some of my cad red and maybe a little bit of my green here, which will gray it down, and to give myself a color that's got a little bit of green in it, but it's mostly grayed down red color. See what happens if I throw that in here. So I'm just going to paint this whole thing in here, leave a few spots. As long as my next color on top is going to be darker than this color, I can go ahead and paint over any of the lines that I want to show. This actually runs all the way over here, the same color. And pick up a little bit different color. I'm going to pull some of my burnt sienna in here. Change the color a little bit so it's not quite all the same color. Leave some dots of white in there. This on this side is really much darker, so I'm going to put in a little bit of my neutral tint to darken it down. There we go. All right. So that neutral tint is going to come in here and help me with these things as well. Over here I've got another nice, really dark shape on this building. So let's put him in and change the color back, get a little more brown in there. Where'd it go? There we go. Let's go around this building, trying to connect the darks. All right, so I'm getting a lot of nice loose stuff going on here that sort of gives me a good feeling. Under here it's a little darker. Put that in. Okay, so that is pretty much that barn. The other one over there has got the same kind of thing going on it. A little more water in that brush, not quite wet enough. These brushes hold a lot of water, but once you touch them on the paper towel, you just take all the water out of them, and they really get dry in a hurry too, so that's kind of nice. All right, let's see, maybe this roof here, put a little bit of our neutral tint, maybe pick up a little bit of that violet there, violet bluish. See if we can put just a little bit on here. A little darker up in that corner here. Let's just grab some more water, clear water, and just sort of bring it down. Soft edges, hard edges, rough edges. Something like that. This out here is going to be really light. Let's just use some clear water out of the brush and pull it over. And just a little bit of that light going on. Let these colors mingle and merge if you want to make some more abstract looking shape. All right, and we have, well, I got this color going here. We have another little building of some sort over here like this. That's where we're going off the paper. So I'm going off the paper over here. Have a little bit of a building there. I really can't tell what it is. It's got trees and stuff in front of it, so I'm going to just sort of wing it here. And we got grasses and stuff. I'm going to put some of those in here. All right, so the bottom of it's nice and set up for some grasses. Sky is about where I want it. See this pencil lines inside there. I don't think I can get them out once I put water over it, but should have taken those out before I started, but let's leave it like that. I may come back and mess with that sky a little more, but it's not too bad, actually. All right, so we're moving right along here. This is moving pretty quickly. In the ground here in front, I'm going to put just a few highlights here. Something to identify that and let it bleed around a little bit down here. All right, something like that. All right, now one other thing I see I need to put in is sort of a little dark pole right here in the corner. Too much black. Okay, and we could maybe use our back of our blade here to put in some, scrape in a few things that this is still dry enough, or wet enough rather. Put in a few marks that look like there's some, I don't know, some boards or something going on back in there. This area here got dry on me, so I got nothing out of it, but if I wet it down just a little, I'll loosen up that paint, and I can put in some angular things that look like there's some, it's hard for you to see, I know, but I want to leave it at that. All right, let's go get some yellow ochre and some green, start putting in this foreground. I'm going to use my same old brush here and just see what happens. There's a whole field of flowers, and it's got some dark things going on here for a rose. And let's see what I'm doing. I just started painting off the edge of the paper just on instinct. I just do that naturally. And I don't want to do that. I want this to come off now down here. These to come off down here with some dark marks like that. That represent some rows, dark rows of these trees that are growing down there. Not trees, flowers. And this photograph was photoshopped by the gal that put the challenge out for us, and she said, here, paint these, paint it without the flowers, paint it with the flowers. Gave us two different kinds of flowers to use, and so that's what I'm using here. I'm just sort of throwing this in. I want to leave it very abstract, even loose. I want to throw some water on there, let it splatter. Over here we got a little more going on, and I have to keep telling myself this is a vignette, don't paint to the edges. I'm so used to going all the way to the edges that I just don't think twice about it. And you have to concentrate on some of this stuff to say, I don't have anything off at this edge over here, so I'm going to figure out what I'm going to do over there. But I probably don't want to take this same stuff off the edge over here on the right that I did on the bottom here. So just throw some more stuff on there. These all right, up above here we've got a bunch of green that's growing in here, a bunch of grasses and stuff. Throw me a little more dark in there. It needs to be darker. Put a little blue in that. It'll darken that down. Hard for you to see that probably. Get some sap green, ultra blue, and just throw in some trees and bushes and things in here. So let's let that run a little bit, let it connect, leave some hard edges. There's a whole bunch of stuff going on here. I got a man I put into this. I want to keep him in the picture. And over here, I'm just going to let this sort of fade out. And I'll probably want to take it off the page over there. A lot of fun. This is loose, impressionistic. What do my white shapes look like? I got sort of a bumpy bump thing going on down here. Looks like some clones, right? Zigzag, triangular things. I don't want that. I want to try to change some of that up so I have a little bit better, more impressionistic white space down here. And by just throwing in some of these other colors and mixing it up, I'm getting something that's kind of nice. Over here, I'm going to throw in just a few of my yellows. All right, now over here I've got a nice space that's about this big. Down here I've got an interesting set of shapes that I have a nice big rectangle here. Told you not to do that, right? We don't want to have just a boring rectangle sitting there, so let's come down and put a few things in here that kind of change that space a little bit. Pull up some of our purples and maybe put a few more things, make it a little jaggedy so that's not quite as boring as it was. It is going off the paper down here, so let's try to connect these things together. All right. So I don't know, this is my first attempt to try to force myself to do a vignette, and it's kind of interesting. That's how your mind has to work to make this thing happen this way. So leave that. We've got some nice spots over here. I probably want to put a few dabs and drabs over here to sort of break up this. This is looking almost very much like a ribbon running across there. I don't want that. I want to have some interesting shapes. Over here I've got probably could put in just a few more things over here to enhance this a little bit. As long as I don't go off the paper over there, I'll be okay. Maybe some trees. I didn't put any trees over here yet. So let's do that. Let's put a few things to highlight that roof line over there. All of a sudden you're seeing the roof come to life. Okay. You need to make something back here to make this roof come to life because it's all pretty boring. And it's hard to tell where it connects. So I'm going to pick up some of my blue and a little darker color on here if I can, and come back and do blot some of these little loose places here. All right, along here, So these really weren't exactly in the photograph, but see what I'm doing with this dark color? I'm outlining this barn so that you can actually see the white or the lighter color. And it helps define that edge. And really it's at the edges that tells you what an object is. And I may be able to pull in a few of these things like this. Something like that. Over here it's probably too late. Yes, it is. If it's too late, I can always come back and put in a little bit of a tree trunk of some kind. Pick up a dark here, brown. Maybe throw a few tree trunks in here. It's a little bit boring. And just splotch it with water and let it run together. Change the color over here, put a few things of over here like that. Pull that color together. Let's take this over here. Let's take this all the way to this other barn edge so we can actually define it and let people know that there's more trees back here. Okay, just little blobs. You don't need a big thing, but over here maybe the same idea. Okay, put a little top on that. Some things. All right. So now we're getting down to the nitty-gritty here around our figure, and I'm going to pull out some of my lamp black, I think, to get a dark color. I want to paint around that guy. And the idea is to leave him unpainted if we can. Paint a real dark background here. Need to get some more dark in there. I've done this whole painting with this brush. Okay, we're putting a figure in our painting, and we'll connect him to the ground here, hopefully. Get some more greens, dark greens. Let's put this in here. Very loose. Very loose. Let's get some color for his head and face. I don't know if it's too wet. And over here. something like that. Leave the white highlights in there for his hat. Give him a bit of a purple shirt here, maybe. And let's just take clear water and sort of pull that down into his pants. There we go. All right, so he stands out. So what else we need to do? We need to put a little calligraphy on here, probably to just highlight some of the structural elements here, some dark things, maybe highlight a few beams and that sort of thing in here to help put some shadows in that would normally be there. And let those sort of run into what's below them. Over here we got a big shadow, I'm sure. Up here. And it runs along here like that. Dry my brush out, take just a little, soften it a little bit. We've got a few more dark things over here. There's a dark door right here that I didn't put in. That. And there's a couple dark doors over here, or windows or something. Over there, a little bit of a shadow over here. Okay, so that's helping define these corners and edges. And all right, so that's the idea of a vignette. So let's go back and check. Do we have interesting white shapes? Yeah, I think we do. Here and here, all four corners. We've gone off the paper here. We've gone off the paper here. Those two things are about the same size. So one of my guidelines said, don't let that happen. Try to make those things different size, different shape, if you can. So while I still got this painting up here, I can do that. And so we'll just come back and put in a few more these yellow flowers down here. Take it down to there. I don't want to take it off the bottom of the paper down there, but I'm going to keep it in this area. So let's put in some more flowers in here. Not flower, yeah, they're flowers. So let's do that, make this shape a little bit bigger. Put a little more texture in it. Soft edges, hard edges. And that gives me a section over here that's about this big versus one over here that's this big. So if I don't like, I could still add even some more here if I want up here. I think that might be all I want to do to this guy. See if I can put in a few tree trunks here and this section back here to help. I didn't do a very good job with that a while ago. Let's put a few little things coming out the top here. Maybe something over here like this. Over here we could do the similar kind of thing. But I'm going to emphasize these a little bit. All right. So that kind of gives you an idea of what a vignette might look like. And I could certainly don't have the flowers in there, but I just kind of let that all be abstract down here. Make the focal point almost at a focal point location. This whole thing here had some bit of definition up here. This thing, a few things like that. Some lines over here. Just some calligraphy type things to help finish this off, so it looks like we got the right horizontal, right vertical things going on. And think, folks, I'm going to call that, say, put my name on here, and we will pull out the fresh water, clean out the palette, and we've been on this about 33 minutes or less on just this painting. We've been going longer than that, I know. However, we're going to do another painting, and it's going to be a little more fun, probably a little more detail in it. Let me get my palette cleaned here, and we can get moving on here. So let's get this going. The other one, the other value map, value plan, value sketch, looks kind of like this. So I kind of want to remember again what I took off of the paper and where I connected. Okay, so I keep that thing over here beside me, and that's my finished barn number 2. All right, let's get going now on my other barn, which is that's a Virginia sawmill. So we've got some logs, we got some interesting things we can do with it. But again, I think I'm going to maybe try to stick with my this mop brush, which I kind of like the looseness and flexibility. I get my new water container open, and I think we're ready to go. Let me see if my palette here is ready for you guys. All right. Any questions? I forgot to ask you. If you have any questions or comments, please put them in the chat window, and I keep checking it. Notice there hasn't been a whole lot of chatting going on, but so we're going to try to do this. I'm going to, before I forget, I'm going to take my kneaded eraser and destroy some of this sketch so you won't be able to see it. But I don't want those pencil lines to overwhelm the watercolor. And once I put watercolor over it, you tend to lose the ability to get it off. All right, I've got a power pole here with some lights coming in. I got a little truck over here I'm going to try to include. I got a couple of figures in here, got a bunch of logs. So we'll have some fun with this. I hope you've been able to see the sketches and been able to download something and maybe even start trying to paint along with me. All right, so I'm going to paint this wet on dry. I'm not going to throw any water on it to get it wet. So many times I'll just wet the entire paper, and that really doesn't help in a painting like this. Thank you, Louisa, for your comment. So I want to put up my new photo here. I forgot about my new photo. Let's get this other photo off and put a new one up there. I have to have my stuff in the right place or I get confused. Okay, there we go. So let's get going. Second painting of the day. This is a Virginia sawmill. This is where I actually attended the workshop with Tony Van Hasselt, and he's still giving workshops. I don't know, he's got to be a lot older than he was when I was there. That was in 1997, so that's over 20 years ago. I still had this photograph in my collection, and so that was kind of a nice thing to see, that he's still out there, still giving lessons and workshops. So let's think about this for a minute. It's got some really, really dark shapes in here. We're outlining some people again, a couple of workers in here working in the sawmill. Got a little truck over here that I want to preserve. And it's not going to look like the photograph hardly at all. I'm going to make a bunch of changes to it, and because it's a vignette, I'm going to want to take it off the paper, and I'm going to use this idea of taking off the paper, one side there, one side up here, one side up here sort of in an X pattern. So I'm going to take this off the paper, take that off the paper, take this off the paper, and that off the paper. Okay, so that's my plan. Now you'll have to check me and see if I do it that way or if I get confused and something else. I'm going to pick up my blue here, ultra blue, and we're going to start. I told you I didn't wet the paper. I am going to wet just a little bit of this sky up here where I want this off the paper. I want that to be nice and soft. In that last painting I didn't wet the sky, and you notice I had a little trouble with that. So I'll try to prevent that from happening here. I just got to remember I'm not taking this all off of the page. So there. All right, so now I got my big mop brush. This is a 0 Trekell quill brush, mop brush. So let's put in some, this is where I'm going to go off the paper up here on top. Leave a few little whites in there. Catch it before it runs all over the place. Put a few clouds in. And over here I'll probably put in, just going to let this all get soft and run out. Soft edges. Down into the tree line down here, I'll just put enough in to have some background behind the trees and behind these other objects. I didn't give you a little tutorial on what's a hard edge and what's a soft edge, but hard edge is where you can really see the edge of the brush stroke there. Soft edge is where it's sort of nice and blurry and blends together. You can't see it. And a rough edge is where you take the paint and you just kind of move really fast across the paper. It leaves broken paint marks on the paper. Wherever the bumps in the paper pick up the paint, it leaves it there. And typically in the sky, you don't want a lot of that. You want mostly soft edges, a few hard edges, but that's kind of what I'm going to do with this sky. I'll put a few more dark things in here and let them sort of run together and run around and make some dark areas. All right, this little mop brush is great for that. All right, so that's the sky. Very, very quickly did the sky. All right. Now, while that's drying, I want to come down and work on something else. I don't want to work in there, put anything up there. I'll end up with a lot of back runs. Will really mess the painting up if I go back in there. Once you put a sky in, you try to stay away from it. Leave it alone. Because the more you work on a sky after you've put it in, the more trouble you'll get into and the worse it will look. That's my theory. All right, so now this, I want to leave the top of this bar. I'm going to try to leave that as much white as I possibly can. So I want to start here, and I want to start putting in some trees. So I'm going to get my Cupric green out and get my sap green out. And I'm going to get a couple of yellow colors here. This happened to be a fall time of the year when I was there. It was in October. And if I remember right, we did plein air painting at another farm nearby. Temperature was like 56 degrees Fahrenheit, which was really, really hard on me because I didn't like painting out in that kind of temperature. So anyway, let's see if we can come along here and put in some tree shapes above this. Outline the top of this building as much as we can. All right. So you're seeing the building, even though I'm not painting the building yet. Throw some yellows in, mix it up, get the greens, different green colors. I I want some ochres in there. So we're going to take these right up in this area like this. Leave some holes in there for the birds to fly through, as Bob Ross used to say. And over here, let's put in some more. Just a lot of change of color. Throw in some darks. Come back and hit it with some dark paint. I'm going to paint around a tree here. I want this tree to be outlined by the background. Okay, you see that tree come to life? Just putting little blobs of paint in between there. Make it come out on this side as well, so you don't end up with this confusing the viewer. The second one over here, I'm going to try to outline. So far, folks, today I've only used one brush, except for signing my name and that sort of stuff. It's amazing what you can do with one mop brush. I've been watching some other artists use these kind of brushes, and it just amazes me how much you can get done with them. Another tree sticking up back there. Okay, so I'm just painting in a ton of trees here. Give me a little more water in there, a little more bright yellow paint. I haven't thought about where I'm going off the page again yet. I just went off up there. I want to come off down here. I want to go off down there. So I've got to make sure I don't mess this up over here and go off in the wrong place. Just put this in. Another tree I'm going to paint around. And a truck I'm going to paint around. A very nice sharp edge on these quill brushes. Let's see over here. Okay, got some nice darks there. I want those darks to sort of extend up here. Okay. I'm making rough edges here, rough. Okay. Over here, I want this to go off the page down here. So let me see if I can get a little more. Okay, that's going off the page over here. And I just got some areas of grass to paint there, over here. Okay, I've got some road and stuff in there. I want to put in some dirt where this guy is coming in. Weeds. Okay. Okay, folks, we're making good progress here. Throwing in some, just splattering in a few spots here to give myself some more texture. So I've got this off the paper here, I've got this off the paper that's bigger. Over here I've either got to make this very small or very, very large. Let's work on that right now. Let's see if we can get that a little better. I got going with the color here. I bet I've lost my color, haven't I? Yeah. A little bit more of this in it. Okay. Right under here, dark. Leave some room. All right, now, so it really looks kind of got the uglies going on right now. All right, just painted that tree there. Throw a few more ochre and yellow things up there on top. Another little tree there maybe. All right, let's stop and soften some of that off. We got a lot of hard edge in there. Okay, so we got a white roof, got a big tree here, another tree back there. Kind of dark and gray in this area. See if I got how much more green grass and stuff I got to put in here. Over here I probably can put in a little more. A lot of negative painting going on here, folks. Just throw it in and see what happens. Okay, a lot of colors, yellows and greens. I'm going to leave a little bit of that green in my palette so that I can come back to it. Okay, still using a 0 mop brush, quill brush. Some call it mop, some call it quill. Okay, now the darks, I got some really darks in here. Sort of a reddish dark. Get some of that going here. Maybe put a little bit of violet in it to give myself a little bit different color. In this area right here, put in kind of dark. Way down. Much darker. Pick up a lot of our neutral tint. Just double loading it, putting in a second color right over the first. When I'm not talking, folks, I'm concentrating. All right. Got that pretty well done. There's a lot of, let's see here. Okay. Okay. Any questions, anybody? Glad you're staying with me. This is a lot of fun for me. I'm learning as I go. It's a fun part of this for me is to force myself to try and do new things. Get me some lamp black in there to get it really dark. Around this guy's hat. Let's see. Down here. Okay. Let's see here. Okay, I'm just leaving some loose marks, openings, things that could be anything that the light might be hitting on back in there. A few beams and that sort of stuff. All abstract, nondescript stuff. Don't have to spell it all out or beat somebody over the head with it. Okay, these logs, I want to bring this off the paper down here. These logs all have sort of a grayish, sort of a gray or bluish gray color to them. We don't have to they have a brown tint to them as well. Brown and grayish brown. I'll pick up some of my burnt umber over here, mix it in with this purplish color I've got, this violet color, and with enough water we can just pull it back here like this. I want to make these slightly different colors, slightly different values so they stand out from each other. Otherwise we end up with a big blob of stuff here that you don't know what it is. So let's put some color in this one with some brown and some probably painting too much, but be a little more abstract maybe, but let's go do this. Darker, much darker at the bottom on this one. Throw some dark in there and let it bleed up. Get some dark value, dark paint. It'll bleed up into the thing above it and help define it. Okay, first time I painted this, I wouldn't want to show you what I painted for these logs. It was terrible. Let's make this more grayed down. I did paint this once in 1997. But it was awful, in my opinion. Okay, hopefully this will be better. Hopefully. Let them bleed, run together a little bit. Okay, maybe they're going to look like logs. I hope so. Got some more logs here. Let's paint these in. It's nice and purple. I'm probably getting a little bit of gray there. I'm leaving a highlight color on top and trying to make it darker on the bottom. Okay, and we're going to have some of this grassy stuff coming up in the bottom here. Hopefully we'll get enough of that going that we can sort of throw in some different colors and stuff that looks like it might be dirt, ground cover. Okay, maybe they're starting to look more like logs now. Throw in some of this brown to separate them a little bit. Need some dark at the bottom of this log. There we go. Keep it soft, lets it bleed up into the log above it. All right, they're starting to look a little bit like logs, a little more dark along here. It's not wet enough, it's not bleeding like I want. Okay, let's see how that looks. Get some more paper here and paper towel. And over here, we've got some more of this dirt road, I guess. It's really just the ground that these guys are working on. I'm gonna throw in some more colors here. And we'll leave it kind of like that. And they've got some other logs back in here, a couple of them. All right, getting a little too much detail here. We need to lighten up, loosen up. One way to do that is to do a little splatter. Get you a little looser. And let's get a and I am working a little too tight here. Okay, put a little bit of this over there. Maybe even bring a little bit up here. All right, I think that's starting to show that we've got some logs laying there. We got some guys working on them. So I'm zeroing in on the part of the focal point here. Let's see if I can put in some of these. I don't know which way the sun is coming from. Assume it's from the right. A little dark ribbon down here on the left side of some of these. Okay, I kind of like the way that's looking. These a little darker next to this green. Otherwise, you can't quite tell the values apart. All right, now we got another tree over here. Let's go do this other tree while we're working on trees. This would be nice to put it in like I've seen. Put this in. We'll do the old lost and found thing. We got lost edges and found edges. I don't know if I've talked to you about that or not, but if you start it up like this and then sort of pull in the right side a little bit lighter, let it go. Fill in some of these dots and dashes down here. And then come back up here and just finish it off. Leave it sort of white right there in the middle. And if we go slightly below this other object, which is the trees, we'll be able to make you see and believe that's a tree running through there. Got too much dark in there. So let's take it out, put in a little bit over here. All right, you can tell that's a tree. So there's another tree that we're putting in. And by just leaving those little bits of white in there, you can kind of see what's going on. Those look like trees. They look kind of interesting. Okay, let's leave it like that. Come back and put in just a little board of a brown border here. And maybe just a few things on that roof to just rough edges, all rough edges, and just sort of letting it do what it wants. Over here, let's brown that down. All right, we're getting down to another area here that's got to be very, very dark around these men that are working out here. Got it dried off now, so I think I can put this in. This guy has got some really dark stuff going on back there. And just throw some other colors in there to sort of make it look like something's going on. Like that. Come over here to the other side of him and we'll put in another dark background. So I'm not painting these guys yet, but you can see the guys that are working. Okay. Yeah, that looks pretty decent. We got some okay. Throw in a few darks across there. Might be casting some kind of shadows here and there. And while we got this dark going on, let's go over here and put a few little dark wheels on our truck. Okay. Put a little shadow going under there. Looks like it might be a truck. Got a nice blue color. I'm going to make it a little darker than blue, or a bit darker than it shows, I guess. All right. Put a few color changes in there, just help it get some other tones going on. Okay, it looks like a truck sitting back there. All right, we're pretty much down to our guys now that are working. Go get some more of my red paint, my CAD red, and see if I can paint in a face or two here. Face and neck. One arm. Another arm. Face. Neck. One arm here. Okay. So I do have a lot of little whites floating around here. I may come back and take those out. A lot of artists don't like to leave those in. So I'm going to pick up just a little bit of this, I don't know, whatever's in my palette, this junk that's in my palette. Sort of come through and just gray some of those down so they don't pull your eye too much. Back in the dark, they wouldn't be picking up a lot of sun back there, but see if I can get some sort of a thing going here. I've got that big telephone pole sitting there that I want to put in. All right, that toned some of those whites down. I'm going to get my little flat brush. I think that's what I need here maybe for this. That's a little too wide, but if I put it on an angle, should be able to get that thing in. It's starts way up here. Bring it down. There we go. That's all there was to that. Put a few more dark values in here in some areas. All right, now got the graffiti thing going on. I'm going to have to get my little light rigger brush here and start putting in a few fine-tuning things. First I want to put a little blue shirt on this guy. Leave his shoulders white paper. Like that. This guy, will put him some dark trousers on him. That, maybe let's give him a reddish brown shirt. I don't like that. I want some blue in there. So I think I've just about got my vignette done here. Couple things to do here with some just help highlight some things like this. I want to put in a few more things like that. That's a little too dark. Lighten it up. Maybe something in here. So these little things just add a little additional character to the painting And something like that. Put a few more flicks in here. Helps it make it look like there's a real woods or something back here, that there got a lot of trees in this area, which is what we're painting. Actually, I had a big old tree going in there, but I decided to take that out, I guess. All right, I'm going to get a lot of paint in this brush. Sort of see if I can put in this. I go from here to there. Like that. Maybe another one like that. Okay. Then we've got a couple that go over here. Go off the page over there. Like that. All right, let me see how we're doing here. Whoops, sorry. I think I want a few little graffiti things on these logs to sort of help identify them a little bit more as logs, maybe. Put some things on the end to make those ends look rounded. Some dark in here to sort of make sure we have this guy highlighted. All right, so you see my two workers there. Give him maybe another little bit of a shadow on his shirt. Yeah, make him stand out just a little. Put a shadow here under this guy. All right, over here we got a couple things on the car to put in. Fender, maybe a rack or something back here. All right, I think I better stop. I think I've done enough. Hopefully that says vignette to you. And I'm going to sign it right here. Okay, so you see the shapes. I've tried to make the white shapes interesting, different sizes, different widths, different lengths. Nice stuff going on there. One thing I might have done is maybe slopped a little more, done just a little more splatter, which I could do now maybe if I want, to just kind of loosen some more of it up. This area over there. All right. I think I'm going to say that should do it for now. And let me back up here and say I'm really glad you joined with me today, and I hope you like this painting. Hope you give it a try and try some vignettes. Try some practices with your sketching tools. Try these little value sketches, if you want to call them that. And can't quite call it a value map because I've already called something else a value map. So anyway, this is two nice little watercolor paintings you can try. Try to paint in a vignette form. Think about the whites in the corners of the paper. Think about keeping soft, hard, and rough edges in your painting, and try to cover only 70%, 60 to 70% of the paper. Leave the rest of it white. So I may have gone just slightly over on this painting. It looks like, looking at it now, it may be a little more than 70% paint and less than 30% white. But that's how you learn. You got to practice. You got to try things, and that's what I like to do. That's why I don't have the same kind of painting. Every time you look at my channel, you see something different. And appreciate you being here and tuning in live. Check out my Facebook page. Check out my website. Get the sketches off of my website. The links are below this video. And so I think until I see you next time, this is Larry Hamilton saying so long for now. Bye-bye.